I have three girls, and Anya was my middle child. She was very healthy, a great baby, never a day sick. Out of the three children, she would have been the healthiest. Big, strong girl. Had everything going for her. Wasn't overly sporty or wasn't overly into anything. She was only 8. She was just a normal child. She enjoyed going out on her bike. She enjoyed playing with her dolls, what normal children do. And one day she had a little bit of a bug. We were just feeling a bit unwell, and she stayed home from school. It was very close to Christmas. She was actually wrapping Christmas presents that day on the floor beside me. And about 4 o'clock, I thought, well, I'll take you to the doctor, just in case. And when we went to the doctor, he said no, he couldn't see anything much wrong with her, and he thought maybe that he'd give her some kaolin and morph to take for the sickness, and she just was a little bit unwell. So she come home, and of course, enjoying the being sick, because she's never been sick, she climbs into bed and reads books, because she just loved to read. And she read her books, and of course I done the mummy thing up and down the stairs. Are you okay? Do you need this? Do you need that? And at the time I was a dance instructor, so I went out to my class that night, and my babysitter, who was thankfully a 24-year-old, not a youngster, was here with Anya, and she said as the night went on, Anya was getting deteriorating, she was getting worse. So she texted me and said, I don't think Anya's very well, I think we should get a doctor. So I landed home, and I looked, and I thought she was a really strange colour, and she did not look well at all. So I said, do you know what, I think we will get the doctor. And I went round to my bedroom to call the doctor, and I heard this scream from my babysitter. She said, come quick, come quick. And when I come back, Anya wasn't breathing. And I jumped on top of her, and I'm a trained first aider, but I think when it happens to your own flesh and blood, all the things that you've learned that you're supposed to do and do right, they all go. They disappear out the window. And I didn't do any of the things I was supposed to do. I was just in such a state. I just jumped up, and I said, Anya, breathe for mommy, breathe for mommy. And I kept shouting and shouting at her. And I was actually up on top of her, making her do this to make her breathe. And then she come back, and she was like this, and she said, I'm breathing, mommy, I'm breathing. And it was like that she could hear me, although she wasn't there or something. It was like she could hear me, because when she come round, she was, I'm breathing, as if to say, don't be so silly. And I was so relieved. I thought, oh my God, what was going on? And I had made such a racket shouting at her that I actually woke up my oldest daughter. When she come in, she was like, Mommy, what's going on? And I said, oh, I don't know. So my babysitter had phoned an ambulance. And when the ambulance came, I felt so silly, because I thought, I've called an ambulance, and now Anya's fine. So her hands were freezing, her nose was freezing, and her feet was freezing, and the rest of her, she was really, really hot. She was actually feverish. And I said to the ambulance man, I feel really silly now, because I shouldn't have done that. But he must have known that her extremities were so cold. And he said, no, we still have to take her in. So we get to the hospital, and she talked the whole way down in the ambulance, of course, about Santi coming, and she told the ambulance driver what Santi was bringing, and etc., etc. We get to the A&E, and she keeps saying, I want a drink, and they wouldn't give her a drink, because they said, we don't know what's wrong with you yet, so they couldn't give her a drink. So they took bloods, and they took different samples, and they decided that she could come up to the children's ward. And when we got to the children's ward, they decided that maybe it was diabetes. So they started treating her for diabetes, which is a large intake of fluid and insulin and whatever else that went in the saline mixture. And everything was fine, and the nurse was saying, if we get her now to go try and get her to sleep. So she turned over to the side of the bed that I was sitting, and started to cozy down to sleep. And as I watched her, I was talking to the nurse and saying about, that we were going to Nashville after Christmas for a dance competition, and Anya didn't know. And you know, I was so excited, and I started to discuss with the nurse my worries of the diabetes. How was I going to cope with needles and whatever on a big long plane journey? How little worries I had. But the next thing, she done exactly what she done at home, and she just stopped breathing. I said to the nurse, look, quickly, look. She's doing exactly what she done at home. This is what she done. And in a way, I was relieved, because I thought, I'm not going mad. This actually happened. Because I kind of felt as if the nurses and doctors didn't listen to what I was saying, that Anya was stopped breathing at home and had stopped breathing for quite a long time. So she come round, or the nurse come round, and she looked, and she pressed a red button, and all these lights went on everywhere, and the room just filled with doctors and nurses. And they took me over to the side of the room beside a sink, and they said, do you want to leave? Do you want to leave? And I was like, no, I'm not leaving. And I stood holding onto the sink, and my legs just went from under me, and they worked and they worked and they worked, and they pumped her chest, and they shouted at each other and get me this and get me that, and it was just a complete pandemonium. And I just watched and stood there. And she was not coming back. And I kept saying, let me go, because I got her back the last time when I told her to breathe. She breathed, so let me tell her. I'll get her to breathe. Because I was convinced that if she heard my voice, that she'd do what she did at home and she'd come round again. But they said no, that they were trying everything, and she didn't come back this time. That was it. She was gone. And I stood at 34 years of age, looking at my daughter, who is 8 years old, and she's gone. And it just doesn't. You learn to deal with it. You don't actually believe that it's happening. And when you relive the story, it's as vivid now as it was 6 years ago when it actually happened. It's just like it's there all the time. It never goes away. And my big, strong girl, who never was sick, and none of these doctors then could tell me why she died. And they thought it was diabetes, but you don't die from diabetes, you live with diabetes. And it wasn't until her post-mortem, the results came back, it was the middle of January, we were actually told it was a thing called myocarditis, which was her little heart. So, it's just, you just can't take it in that this can happen, but it does. I have a very big family. There's 10 children in our house, and I lost my brother when I was 13. And I remember feeling as if my mum had forgotten me and my sister, who were younger than my brother at the time, that we were forgotten, and that it was like nothing. It was just like, oh, I'm still here, I'm still alive. And the day we went to the mortuary, myself and my husband, we went to the mortuary to see Anya. He hadn't seen her because he was a lorry driver, so he hadn't been there when she died with me. I was by myself. And we went to the mortuary with our other two children, because they insisted they wanted to see her, and he just broke down and he just fell apart. And all I know is, I remember saying, we can't do this. We have 2 other children who need us, and we have to be strong for them. And without my other children, I would have fallen apart. They are what has kept me going, because it's for them that I carried on living. It's for my other 2 girls that I got out of bed every morning. And that's, other than that, I think I wanted to die too. But having Aisling and Aoife, I look at them now and I think Anya, or as we call her, Muffy, would not want Mommy to crumble. And I do believe strongly that I carry her around in my heart, and that she's with me every single day. I talk to her every day. If I have a problem, she's the first person I call on, no matter how simple or how large my problem would be. she's the one I would say, "Hi, get down here and sort mommy out."